So I think a lot of the content I produce is more about my clients and about kind of like giving a lot of value, and I don't really give much insight into kind of what I'm about and what makes me tick. So I think today what I'm going to cover is why I remain natural. So why am I a natural bodybuilder? I'm going to kind of give my opinion on one, why I'm natural, and two, kind of like how personally, if I was ever going to go to the other side, how I would do it and what my kind of thoughts are. I think the main thing for me is to get across that I love bodybuilding. I love all kinds of bodybuilding. And by this, I just mean people who are working on the body and working to transform their life. This has included bodybuilders who are assisted. So there's a notion that if you're assisted, it's cheating and things like that. And while a lot of people take it to cheat, bodybuilders who are trying to take themselves to the very next level, these are not in that category. They're kind of just, they're in a different pool of people. So as a natural person, I'm never going to come up against people who are assisted because I'm not going to do assisted contests. So it's kind of like, it's a level playing field really. So I have admiration for everyone, because if you take steroids and don't do the daily like necessary behaviors and traits that you need to do, like prepping food, recovering, training hard, then steroids will do nothing for you. So each and every individual that does it, for me, they're doing what it takes, just exactly the same as a natural. Now, obviously, being natural, there is kind of levels where it gets more difficult, because quite simply, if you're in like the dying stages of prep, like you're 5-6 weeks out, body fat levels are down, you can't add things in. Whereas like if you're adding exogenous testosterone, fat burners, things like that, these are tools that you can use. So there is an argument that it can get harder. And a lot of the people that I know that do prep assisted, they have a level of respect for the natural for this exact reason. But again, that's not to say that like the low levels of body fat, the difficulty dieting isn't in a very similar like position. So I just kind of want to get across the fact that I do respect like assisted athletes just as much as I respect like the natural side. But for me, one of the main reasons why I prefer to stay natural, while there are several, the number one for me was always, I know that I am not going to be a pro bodybuilder. I don't really want to be, and that's not something I'm saying because I can't achieve it. It's because like I'm a family man before anything. So I never wanted to kind of mess with my ability to have a family. And again, I'm not saying that people who are on gear can't have families, because a lot of people do. But I do know quite a few people who are finding it very difficult, or have found it difficult. And it's one of those things, you know. For me, I never wanted to have those risks, and it's a risk to reward. So some people are willing to sacrifice absolutely everything in the name of bodybuilding, but for me, I literally bodybuild because I love the train, and that's as far as it goes. Like I never want this to be so serious I can't physically enjoy it. Like, so for me, like bodybuilding is just something that I really enjoy. So if you're gonna take steroids and you want to be on that next level, then every movement you make has to be kind of geared towards that, and that's not my life. As I was like growing up and I was training a lot of my friends around me started to take gear. And obviously being, I think I was 9 stone at 16 when I was just starting out, and everyone was getting juiced up, jumping on X, Y, and Z, like things that they had absolutely no idea about, and they were gaining muscle, and they were getting shredded, gaining muscle, going on holidays, looking unbelievable. And I kind of never did that. And don't get me wrong, it was really difficult at the time, because I was like, Jesus, like if I just went on it, like look what I could be doing. And I think now we live in this kind of world where it's so easy to get what you want right now. And it was a daily battle for me not to do that, because I wanted to be on that level. But I just always thought about the health implications and what it was that I wanted. And I was just like, even at like 16, 17, I knew I wanted a family, and I knew that I didn't want any of those like negative side effects that are associated with gear. Because yes, you can minimize the risk, but like don't get it twisted, it's affecting your body. If something can change your physiology that much, it's going to affect your body. It was one of those things where I stayed true to who I was. I learned to train, I learned to get stronger, And I don't think I obsessed over the results, so it was easy for me because I just loved to train. I love to train, I always ate well, and then results started to come, and it's like, it took me probably 8 to 10 years after starting training these guys who were just surpassing me at massive speed for me to then start to actually physically see the benefit, because it was like I was stronger than them, I was more ripped than them, I was bigger than them. Once they decided to come off it, because remembering that they were taking them for kind of just recreational purposes, not because they wanted to be pro. So it kind of paid dividends in the end. And I'm so glad that I stayed natural. And even still now, I watch people who come back from lockdown, for example, and because they've not been able to take the gear or use the gym to facilitate taking the gear, it's like they've lost so much size and strength, whereas I've rebounded back from lockdown, and I'm probably stronger than ever, and this is just, I believe, because when you build something that's just natural and it's taken so long, it remains with you so fast. Like, one of the things that I realized from a younger age also was that I've got quite an addictive personality, so like I will get the feeling of like the boosting strength, boosting recovery from taking gear, and it was like, where would I then stop? And I think a lot of people get this. I see a lot of people come off them because I know a lot of people that take them. It's obviously very, very common. Most of which are incredible athletes as well. But it's like they talk about like the lulls when they come off, and like how it can make your mood go down. It can take strength away from you, size away from you, and it's like that's what draws them back into going on it. And it's like, where does this end? Whereas for me, because I continue to love training, I will just continue to go as hard as I possibly can. And again, like, if I ever wanted to compete into a level where I thought I could turn pro, I would have to assess it. I'd be like, I'm 31 years old, I probably haven't got the structure, and if I was to go on gear now, look at the difference between people that are, say, middleweight and compete assisted versus me. It's going to take me it'll take me 4 or 5 years of a lot of gear before I could even get on stage and do myself justice. Am I willing to do that? And I think for me, like, some people will probably find this a bit distasteful and disagree, but I think gear now has become a kind of who's willing to take the most. You'll get genetic freaks who can take a little and gain tons, but there's a lot of people coming through that. They're not really afraid to continue to run it, not step back, potentially not take any blood work, and just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. So it's like, if you want to go into that realm, then you better be willing to do what it takes, because there are many, many people that are, and they're not really asked about kind of like the repercussions, or that's the perception that's given off anyway. So for me, it's like I'd be putting myself into a much, much bigger pond versus like against people that are just way, way bigger than me. So my biggest motivation at current, because previously it was being able to have like healthy children, like not having any of the side effects, not wanting my hairline to recede any more than it has. And I think now it stems from the fact that I do get a buzz off of people who compliment my physique or like what I've achieved, and then recognizing that this is natural. It's a good feeling, but it also means that I'm inspiring a lot of people. All my clients are the same, like they're inspired by the fact that I am natural, and this kind of keeps me going. Now, again, once you start to get older, obviously you, as a male, testosterone levels start to decline, and this is one of the biggest reasons why we end up more susceptible to like diseases, because muscle wastage will, obviously that's declining all the time, as well as testosterone. So I would probably, as testosterone declines, I would probably be more likely to go down the realms of maybe adding in some testosterone, so like some hormone replacement therapy. So it wouldn't be a case of doing like 5 mil a week or loads of different compounds or anything like that. That would be a health purposes, but that's something that I assess regularly, because the first and foremost, and probably one of the things I should have started with, was health is just everything to me, and I would never want to do anything that would take away from the health side of things. As much as, again, you can do this really, really intelligently, and I'm sure a lot of people do, but there are risks, and anyone who says they're not, in my opinion, are full of shit or just very, very deluded. And I always want to make sure that I live as healthy as I possibly can, so that I can be healthy for my children, I can set a great example for them, and again, just continue to inspire people to do the same. Now, having said that, like, obviously I started this by saying I've got a very big respect for people who do take them and they do live that life. Like, if you're taking them just because it's like, oh, I've got Ibiza in like 6 weeks time, for me, like, our values don't align. And I think that's where the negative opinion of steroids comes in. But I think when someone's chasing them because they've got a goal and ambition to be the best, as long as they're living the lifestyle that it requires, and they're doing everything they possibly can to minimize risks, maximize gain, then yeah, you hold my respect massively. And I think for a lot of people who are natural, because this has become a bit of a trend at the minute as well, so people are natural and now they're going through the transition onto steroids, and then obviously this is going to mean they compete in different categories, things like that. It's like, again, I can have a respect for that, but we need to make sure that you exhaust every natural avenue. So if you're 18, 19, 20 years old, or even early 20s, and you're considering it, one of the things that you need to really realize is the fact that you have so much natural potential. Your body is literally not even peaked naturally. If you're training hard enough and doing what it takes on a daily basis, you don't need it. And then when you do transition and you have the mindset of gaining a lot out of a very little, your body is going to be so much more responsive, and what you're going to do is you're going to make that growth chart like much steadier and much higher, as opposed to being young, going up, and then your body being like, okay, now what? So you're only ever going to kind of come back down. And then obviously from this position, it's like, can I take more gear? Fine, let's take more. It's going to come back down, then I've got to take more. So before you know it, you're in far more unhealthy kind of territory than you would be if you exacerbated all of your natural avenues, your natural growth period, and then you used a little bit, and then you used a little bit more. And I think the reason why I'm passionate about this as well is because I know a lot of very, very good athletes that have started gear from a young age, but a lot that have started it from an older age. And both of their opinions are the fact that the people that took it later on are so glad they did, because they've got so much more to give. And those who took it earlier on, who are still great athletes, have said, I wish I would have waited. So that's like a really common theme from the people that I've spoken to. They wish they would have kind of exhausted all natural avenues first, rather than just jumped on it in the higher amounts. And also done it like really sensibly, so not just because someone they know can get like XYZ compound and just bang as much as they can. It's all intelligently done. And I think probably the last point is the fact that if you look at some of the natural pros, like in the WNBF, but also the DFAC, like the standard is ridiculous. And when I compare my standard to their standard, it's not even close. So I want to see personally how much I can gain and get through the natural pathway, because I've not even probably got to the tip of the iceberg yet. So it's just about a challenge for me, and wanting to just progress as much as I can, as natural as possible. And there is such a sense of pride when you think about, like, I've squatted 200, I've hit like 220 deadlifts as a natural person. I can bicep curl 30 kgs aside. Like, these little things, I know these probably seem really trivial when you're watching this, but like, they're targets for me. And it's like, I want to keep driving my strength as high as I possibly can, because when you're lifting and in a similar realm to someone who's assisted, like, it just gives you that feeling like of what you've accomplished and how class it is. And there's always the what could I achieve if I did go to that side. But again, for me, it's like the risk to reward ratio just isn't there. Like, I would gain very little. And one of the most important things that I wanted to get across in this video is that think about what it's going to open up for you. So I personally believe a lot of people will think the bigger I am, the more people will see me on stage, the more clients I'll get, the bigger my business will get, and I will gain so much reward for it. But that just is not the reality. So if you think about how many people are on stage, they're humongous, far bigger than me. That doesn't necessarily align with their business goals. That doesn't mean that their business is any bigger, that they're doing any better, that they're earning any more. I think a lot of people, like I competed and expected this kind of floodgate of people coming in because they're like, wow, look how shredded this guy is, he could get me shredded. And when I'd competed, I definitely didn't get even one message of anyone interested in my coaching or anything like that. Like that sort of thing comes from just basically years and years of giving out value, learning your craft, getting better and becoming a bigger name in terms of being able to help people. And I just fear that a lot of people kind of get into it for the wrong reasons, which is none of my business. But again, I recognize really fast that competing doesn't open doors for you in terms of a business side of things, because realistically, how many pros that are assisted, how many of them are going to like have the sort of the top end earnings and the glamorous lifestyle that you see? It's probably not that many. So I think first and foremost, before anybody does anything, they should be considering like why they're doing it. If you have a burning desire to be the best bodybuilder you can possibly be, and that aligns with what you want to do, then you go for it. But that wasn't the case for me. It was like, I want to be a really good family man. I want to be a successful coach. I want to be able to provide for my family, and like whether I take gear or not, that just doesn't open or close any other door. I think the take home message is one, sharing exactly why I stay natural, but also being able to explain that if you do want to go to that side, or if you have, like, one, be as smart as you possibly can, get as much help as you possibly can, do everything you can to minimize the risk benefit, maximize every possible natural avenue before you do it, and just make sure you live and breathe that life. Otherwise, you're kind of playing with something that you're not really fully understanding, and not really for any other reason. So I do hope that this helps a few people, gives you something to think about if you are considering that, and I hope it just helps you kind of learn a little bit more about what it is that I do and why I want to stay natural, and my reasons behind it.